Our next speaker, I believe, has entered the building. And I noticed you may have heard of him recently. And I know he's just landed in the country because he's just tweeted, he says, "I've just landed in Australia. Kay Keneally must be going bananas." The Spectator a couple of weeks ago called him the Randy Dandy of British politics. He was Nigel Farage's Chief of Staff. He's a troublemaker. And he's also RAHEEM Kassam.
Me? Is that me? I don't need that. I just realised I've got this thing on. I'm like Madonna. Not quite like Madonna. Well, this is wonderful. I never thought I'd be in Australia, let alone giving a speech in Australia, so thank you all for being here. Usually I stand up on stage and I firstly introduce myself, but I think some of your media has done that for me in the last couple of days. So I introduce myself as the man who needs no introduction. I don't know, did any of you guys see the Democrat Socialists of America conference the other day? So I get really easily triggered, guys. So if we could do jazz hands instead of the clapping, that would be really... My pronouns. It's absolutely wonderful to be here, and it's just a magnificent crowd. And just driving from the airport this morning, I landed this morning, so I'm still a little bit shaky. That's what the gin's about. Steady the nerves here. But just seeing, as a Brit, seeing Australia, knowing our common heritage, our common values, seeing the Union flag in your flag, and just sort of reflecting on that this morning, it made me so proud that we are Western civilization. We are those people coming together here. And we also have much more in common. A belief in, market system, a belief in freedom, in liberty, and in free speech, in Dame Edna Everage. I draw the line at Vegemite, though. I'm a Marmite guy. But it seems like I'm a Marmite guy in Australia as well. Some love me and some seem to hate me. And somebody who really seems to hate me is this Senator Keneally, who I don't know if you guys remember Nigel Farage's speech in the European Parliament from a couple of years ago, and he said, "Who are you? I've never heard of you." It's exactly how I feel about Senator Keneally. The other thing we have in common is Enoch Powell. Anybody know Enoch Powell? Yes. Enoch Powell was one of the youngest professors ever at the University of Sydney. He taught classics at the age of 25. Only beaten, by the way, by Nietzsche, who taught as a professor at the age of 24. He always wanted to beat him, but never got there. But I was looking at this, and I thought, this is really interesting, because Enoch Powell, one of his students, was Gough Whitlam. Think about that. This is a Labour Party leader who was the first to win an election in, I think, 23 years since they had last won an election. You think about it now. Would Enoch Powell be allowed in the country today? But he helped make Gough Whitlam. I have a British passport, and in fact, let me just get this right. Let me get this right. In the first page, you know, because Keneally's tried to have me banned from the country. In the first page here of my passport, Her Britannic Majesty's Secretary of State requests and requires in the name of Her Majesty all those whom it may concern to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance and to afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. And you would think that in trying to, or pretending to, represent a Commonwealth nation, that Senator Keneally might have that in the back of her mind before trying to have someone like me banned from the country. But she doesn't care about our shared heritage. She doesn't care about the Commonwealth. She also doesn't care, well, people were shouting that about Ted Cruz in 2016. But she also doesn't care. She grew up with Catholicism. And she also doesn't seem to care about that very much. I mean, one of my good friends is Cardinal Burke of the Vatican, who has recently quoted my 2017 book, No-Go Zones, where I actually went to Muslim-dominated neighborhoods across Europe and in the United States and reported from on the ground as to what was happening there. And actually the book, for anybody that's read it, I think people will agree, is relatively fair. It's quite fair. I'm not trying to put the whole blame on Muslims. I'm showing in that book something that Senator Keneally can't understand, is you can't put everyone in a little box. You can't say, if I, which I do regularly, and which I hope the media gets correct in the reporting of this, when I critique radical fundamentalist Islam, I'm not critiquing my Muslim family members. I grew up in Islam. I spent 20 years in Islam. Senator Keneally spent about 20 minutes loitering outside a mosque. And she thinks she can lecture me on this. Me with my Muslim parents and my Muslim cousins and my Muslim aunts and uncles. She has absolutely no idea. And she was raised a Catholic. Well, here's something about free speech from John Paul II's encyclical in 1991. The democratic ideal needs an authentic and solid foundation. He said this: the right to develop one's intelligence and freedom in seeking and knowing the truth is that foundation. Well, how does banning someone from the country lend to knowing and seeking the truth? It doesn't. She should be ashamed of herself. There's nothing Christian about silencing your political opposition. There's nothing Catholic about lying about people. And there's nothing God-fearing about hiding behind parliamentary privilege to besmirch me, to try and harm my livelihood and my life and my reputation, to put me in danger to walk down the streets of Sydney. Because that's what she's doing. She's putting my life in danger. And she's making it so that whenever I have to fill in a form ever again, she wants me to have to tick, yes, I have been banned from a country, actually. Do you know how much that can affect you in your day-to-day life? Do you know how many jobs you have to pass up? You know how many other visas you wouldn't get from that happening? That's what she's trying to do to someone like me. And I actually invited her publicly to come and share this stage with me. No, I did. Why not? And she's here today, as you can see. I mean, frankly, an empty chair makes more sense. No, Chicken Keneally, I think we need to call her. Chicken Keneally. See, I'm doing the Trump thing. You got to give him a nickname. Chicken Keneally was offered the space to debate me. She wouldn't. I offered to go to her office and meet with her privately. She wouldn't. I offered to go to her office and she could live stream it, and she wouldn't. No, nothing. She does not want to have the conversation. Because the truth is, she wasn't really concerned about me. She's concerned about you. She's concerned about you guys. I'm here for 20 minutes. She's concerned about what you guys will learn, what you guys will hear, and what you guys will put into place in your politics, in your communities, in your families. She wanted me as the fall guy. she wanted somebody to burnish her credentials, her anti-CPAC credentials. She didn't go after Farage or Schlapp or Jeanine Pirro. She went after the young brown guy. She thinks she picked an easy target. She picked the hardest target, by the way. I have a very, very, very poor ability to just shut my mouth. So she picked the hardest target, believe me. She picked the ex-Muslim who gets death threats daily. I get death threats daily for having left Islam 13 years ago. She picked me because I had the audacity, the temerity to leave Islam and talk openly about it. You ever hear them doing that? You don't need to applaud that. No. I'm not Jeb Bush. There's no please clap here, by the way. But please clap. She thought that she could pick an easy target in me, but you notice how they never do it with ex-Christians who speak up against Christianity, right? They never say, oh, well, you're a bigot against Christianity now because you left Christianity and you're slagging off Christianity. You know, they put them on TV and they say, this is marvelous. How wonderful that you left this faith. Let's get you some airtime. Let's put you on the nightly news. But if it's Islam, no, you're not allowed. It's over. Well, I think kind of backfired on her. She's been pilloried, she's been ridiculed, she's been embarrassed nationally and internationally over the last week or so. I mean, the president's son, Donald Trump Jr., even weighed in to call what she was doing utter madness, and I thank him for that. Because I was beginning to wonder when the next point was that the Labour Party were going to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory after the last election. Turns out it was over me. You know, I grew up in West London, as I say, to a Muslim family. I have lived it. London is a multicultural city. I have lived it. I have seen all of these things. The idea that she can come at me as some sort of bigot, you know, as if some Little Englander, some sort of NIMBY-esque character. It's a nonsense. I grew up in a major city. I grew up in this faith. But it's also not just by the deeds that you shall know them. It's also by the company they keep. Because the Australian Labour Party, while trying to ban me from the country, had Emily Thornberry over here, who is a senior representative of Britain's Labour Party. Her real title, by the way, is Lady Nuji, but that doesn't really work when you're trying to pretend to be a working class party. So she goes by Emily Thornberry. And the Labour Party, I don't know how much you guys follow British politics, but is riven with anti-Semitism to its very core and to its very highest echelons. They are the anti-Semitic party in the Western world, and you know what, secretly, they're kind of proud about that, which is the really disgusting thing. Jeremy Corbyn has had so many investigations now into the Labour Party, and this is who the Australian Labour Party stands shoulder to shoulder with. This is who they welcome over. This is what's his name? I don't even remember his name. Alba? Who cares? He poses for a picture with her. So I have this to say to them. You are the anti-Semites. You are the bigots. You are the racists. Do not point your fingers at me or anyone in this room when you stand shoulder to shoulder with Britain's institutionally anti-Semitic Labour Party. You know, in 2009, I set up a counter-extremism, me, the so-called extremist, a counter-extremism pressure group in the United Kingdom where we highlighted where fundamentalist, radical Islamic preachers were going onto university campuses and trying to radicalize young men and women. That was my first gig outside of university. I went to the University of Westminster, slap bang in the middle of London. And day in and day out, I saw young Muslim men self-radicalizing and being radicalized from without, having speakers come onto campus who were talking about throwing homosexuals off mountains and off buildings. I saw people talking about how it was appropriate to just lightly beat your wife from time to time. People advocating for female genital mutilation. which we have, by the way, one instance of FGM in the United Kingdom every 100 minutes at the moment. That's why I set up that pressure group in 2009. You know who was 1 year below me at university? Jihadi John. In my university, 1 year below me. And so we took extraordinary measures to make sure that the media was covering what was going on. And we had some success. We had front pages of the Daily Telegraph. We had cross-party groups of members of parliament, bipartisan events, counter-extremism events. So I won't take any lessons in extremism from Senator Keneally. She'd probably prefer Jihadi John was standing on this stage, quite frankly. But I remember a lot of people ask me, well, what was it really that led you to say, I don't want to do this with Islam anymore, I don't want to be a part of this thing anymore? It was when I was at university and I was pressured a lot to go to these Islamic Society events. I know you guys have these Islamic societies on university campuses here as well. So eventually I caved to the pressure of these guys who used to crowd around me after seminars every couple of days, and they'd say, brother, you have to come to these meetings. So I caved at one point, and I was walking down. You used to go to the pub all the time after lectures, and I'm sure you guys, you know, the Americans don't really do it like the rest of us do, but, you know, we would take any opportunity to go to the pubs. And we were walking to the pub, and I said to my mate Richard at the time, I said, look, I'm just going to pop into this Islamic Society meeting, and I'll meet you at the pub in like an hour. Wasn't even supposed to be a laugh line. But as I was walking up the steps of this building on Little Titchfield Street in London, these guys came walking down towards me, and they said, brother, you don't want to go in there. Muslim guys. I said, you don't want to go in there. I said, why not? He goes, they're showing videos of 9/11 and clapping and cheering. So, you know, you want to talk about pivotal moments. I had a literal pivotal moment. I turned on my heel, and Richard was still walking down there. I said, Richard. He goes, what? I said, I'm coming down the pub, and I've never left. Honestly, true story. It's a problem. No, we stopped Islamic radicals just being able to freely radicalize young men and women in the United Kingdom. We did our utmost to put a halt to that. And I'm really not just talking about this because I want to talk about myself for this whole time, but I want to talk about how crazy the left has become. You know, once upon a time, as I say, we had cross-party members of parliament in our group. They would have stood with us at some points. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not your grandfather's Labour Party. This is not Gough Whitlam's Labour Party. You know, we have Jeremy Corbyn, as I mentioned. And I speak on this stage without parliamentary privilege. Jeremy Corbyn is a friend of Hamas. Jeremy Corbyn has marched alongside Hezbollah flags. Jeremy Corbyn has taken money from Press TV, which is a government-funded news outlet of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Jeremy Corbyn has stood shoulder to shoulder with terrorists from the IRA. This is the party who Keneally and Albo, all those guys, they're hanging out with these guys while trying to keep me out. It's because they've dedicated themselves to what Steve Bannon once called the nullification project of 2016, to reject what happened in 2016, to reject Brexit, to reject Trump, but most importantly, to reject Western civilization. I think you've seen a lot of it in the last couple of weeks here. The abortion argument here at the moment. You know, the cricket board, did anybody see this? The cricket board talking about letting transgender, I don't even get the thing right, but men effectively, biological men, playing on the women's team, right? So basically their new feminism is just to let men play all the cricket. I don't get it. But I know what it is for. It's designed to destroy traditionalism. It's designed to destroy the family. It's designed to divide. It's designed to tear down institutions. And anybody who objects, not even objects, by the way, anybody who just goes, whoa, slow down, what are you doing? Hold on. Bigot, racist, sexist, homophobe, Islamophobe. And they call it hate speech, right? Hate speech. All the Sydney Morning Herald, they call me a hate speaker. It's very Orwellian, actually, that phrase, hate speech. Double think, you know, double speak. What's the opposite of hate speech? No, it's not. The opposite of hate and the opposite of love is both apathy. It's meh, right? They don't want people, they want to portray us as hate speech because they actually want people to be apathetic. They don't want people to know what's going on. They certainly don't want us to get upset about some of the things that are going on. No, they want apathy. They want you apathetic. They want your kids apathetic. But only when they say so. Because when they tell them to get riled up, Russia collusion and all that, oh, you better get riled up about that. And then they want you to quickly back down. You know, you think about all the terrible things that are happening in the United States at the moment. The shootings. Why are these kids feeling like this? It's not video games. It's being let up and then straight back down. And it's pumping them with medication and pumping them with these lies and these fantasies. They want them to have a little anger on-off switch. And that's not how human beings are supposed to be. You know, they're gaslighting us day on day, lies upon lies. And they're making our kids, the mental health situation, just absolutely unreal. Resist, riot, reject, and then back down again. And the teachers are teaching these kids not to listen, not to debate, not to care about opposite opinions or anything like that. The West, unfortunately, now is actually a breeding ground for extremists, but it's the establishment media and the left that is breeding these people, causing them to be like this. It ain't because of me. Nobody's citing RAHEEM KASSAM in any manifestos. CNN, BBC, ABC, Twitter, Facebook, Google, the pharmaceuticals industry, they are all complicit in what is going on with young people today. And the weird thing is, they all admit it in private. I talk to a lot of establishment journalists, and so that I keep talking to them, so that I keep getting the inside scoop, I won't name any names, but they admit it. One of them told me recently, I said, you know, the Washington Post news strapline is "Democracy dies in darkness." But they still believe that they're neutral. But they only put that strapline in after Trump was elected, right? I sat down privately with him and I said to the guy, look, would you have adopted this strapline if Hillary Clinton was elected? He went, not really. I said, you're admitting your own biases, but then publicly you pretend you're neutral. That's gaslighting. You're gaslighting people. And it's backfiring because media trust in this country, in my country, in the United States, is at all-time lows. You know, the trust in the media in the United States is as low as trust in Congress. Believe me, that's low, okay? that is a very, very low place to be. You know, in Australia, I looked at this morning. There was an Edelman study recently. Australia, second only to Turkey in distrust in the media in the world. Authoritarian Islamist Turkey. What does it say about your media? Only over half of Australians, believe that newspapers and magazines routinely contain fake news. Because they do. And people are waking up to this. You know, they've been writing about me for the last, 2 weeks now? Nobody contacted me. Not a single person said, what's your response? What is your take on this? We'd like to interview you. We'd like, you to have right of reply. Until I sent a pretty snippy letter to the Sydney Morning Herald, only then did they half quote me. But all this whole time, and I get these Google notifications in my email box every morning, Sky News clips and Sydney Morning Herald and all of this stuff, and I just think, nobody's called me. No, because here's the thing, like I said at the beginning, I'm not really the focus. Right? If I was the focus, they'd be asking me. They'd be talking to me. They don't. It's about you. It's about what's going on here. It's about CPAC Australia. They're worried about what's being seeded here in this room and what comes out of it. But you know what? All that aside, I'm a very, I worked at Breitbart, and I am an Andrew Breitbart type of guy, the happy warrior. Right? We've all got to be happy warriors, happy in our dispositions. We have to show our friends and family and neighbors and congregations that actually we're not just doing what we're doing because we're sad about what's going on in the world, but because we still maintain optimism deep down, optimism that we can win. And we are winning. We're winning in so many ways. We're governing in so many places. And what happens when conservatives and nationalists govern? Low unemployment, high minority employment, bigger, stronger families, controlled immigration, wage growth, stock market highs. All of these things people look at and they go, yeah, you know what, we actually kind of want those things in our countries too. So that's why you're seeing Brazil and India and Italy and Hungary and the United Kingdom and in Australia and in the United States, they're all coming together and rejecting the leftist consensus because we are winning. So take hope and take pride and take solace and take comfort, but don't just take. Remember to give. The most important thing we can do is give back to our communities and give back to our countries, to our nations, and more than anything, ladies and gentlemen, give them hell. Thank you. Thank you.